Previously on X-Men.
I want the truth to be told, that these things are real. He was possessed.
Well, we're finally here. The third and hopefully final entry in the Conjuring universe has arrived. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I feel like this is a special event this time around. We have been through spin-off, unrelated yet related spin-off, despite the director trying to say that it isn't, after spin-off. After all the junk that followed James Wan's actual Conjuring movies, we have finally reached the proper third entry of the Warrens' adventures. Does this movie return the series to any type of integrity? Does it bring anything scary to the table? Does it have a new approach in tone or style? Well, what I can now clarify is, no, it's from the same director as La Llorona. Cue the Jumpscare Bleh montage. Bleh, 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 bleh. So, I saw this film a few days after its initial release, and I have barely seen anything about it. But what I keep seeing is Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are so good as the heart of the film. Oh, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are still as strong as ever as Ed and Lorraine Warren. Oh, so good. And it's like, yeah, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are very talented actors with great charisma. Also, the dynamic of a loving 50s couple is fun to watch. But what I'm gonna say is, that dynamic has been so well established that it's hard to up. This movie really hammers that in to the point where it's like screenwriting Cliff's Notes. The two characters may as well just keep looking at the screen going, we're the hearts of the film. Our loving nature and exposition make you feel good. It's like the Ninja Turtles. The characters are so strong that it's hard to screw them up. Like the new Ninja Turtle movies, they're awful, nausea-inducing CGI, but the characters are still on point because it's hard to them up. So like, yeah, for anyone who wants to comment, the movie was okay, but Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are still the hearts of the film though. Yeah, no shit. The only way to screw it up would be to have the first two established movies and then all of a sudden the third movie they're just like,
I'm pro-abortion, so I'm probably going straight to hell.
Oh, and I got fat.
You got big fat titties, and I like to kill babies, unborn babies.
And the reason I bring this point up is just because the two actors are fun to watch and the types of characters that they play are fun to follow as protagonists is no counter excuse for how this film is the dumbest entry in the franchise. And with that being said, let's get into how this movie is the dumbest chapter in the Conjuring universe. A new element added to the Warrens' characters in this, because, you know, gotta have a new thing, is Ed has a heart attack, which then adds pressure on the demon investigating for the rest of the movie. So, what the first two Conjurings established was the intro scene will feature a real-life Warren case file, Annabelle, Amityville, that sets the tone and then the main story begins. The opening scene to this movie directly involves the rest of the film. It starts with the main characters performing a hectic exorcism on the kid from Colorado Spice. And, do you remember that movie from the 70s? Features possession and demons and stuff. You might know it. Hey, it's called The Exorcist. Michael Chaves certainly remembers The Exorcist. So much that he literally rips off not just the classic image of The Exorcist, but it's like the same fucking beats. Gets out of the cab, stands there for a poster shot, sees the light on, then walks towards the house. But that's not where the rip-offery ends. The possession scene is literally Nightmare on Elm Street, The Exorcist, The Evil Dead, and even X-Men 3 all rolled into one. When in The Exorcist, you have stuff flying around the house, being all affected. This is like Jean Grey is making the whole house levitate. The kid starts contorting and twisting around, and then the execution of Ed's heart attack happens, and I nearly burst out laughing. The demon kid gives it to him. The kid like knocks everyone away who was holding him down during the exorcism, jumps on Ed who is on his back, and in Evil Dead fashion goes, I will take your heart!
I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul! I'll swallow your soul!
Swallow this.
And then the kid puts his hand on his chest and that's what gives him the heart attack. But also at this time, this other dude who becomes the main guy grabs the kid and does an exorcist demon hot swap.
Take me! Take me!
and the demon Bluetooth transfers into him, and Ed sees this, but then goes into a coma. So we can have some time pass where the dude gets affected by the demon, and then Ed wakes up and is like, old mate's got the demon in him from the other night. We gotta drive over there. I just find it ludicrous that the shock of the exorcism plus Ed Warren's real life bad health couldn't have been enough. The demon child had to purposefully give him, of all the people in the room, specifically a heart attack. Just needing pills for the rest of the movie because of a demon is so lame. But that was just a super amazing, explosive, spectacular intro. And it's so great that most people who walk out of this film say it's the best part because the rest is boring and silly. The intro is only memorable because you recognize these movies. But then we return to our regular jump scare garbage broadcasting. Seeing as this film is directed by the most by-the-books cliche jump scare fest, The Curse of La Llorona's Michael Chaves. And his annoying, overused, uninteresting jump scares are on point in this movie. May as well just have text at the bottom saying, jump scare incoming. The build-up of a jump scare now is like the first level in Tetris. Shortly after being possessed, this guy sees a box of cereal fall over. Then he goes to investigate. Then, a rat scampers away. Then he sees it crawl up into this gross, rotting black hole in the wall. And then he walks up to it, slowly. And then he sticks his eye up to the hole to get a look in. When, oh, there was nothing in the hole. But there's this woman ghost standing behind him. That was it, but nothing happens. Cuts to someone else or the next day. There's another point where he's high up in a tree cutting down branches with a chainsaw. Can you feel what's coming? He stops and sees that woman in the window. Then, the chainsaw goes off. Leads to nothing. Cuts to someone else or the next day. Horror movies of today, boys and girls. And then they do a flashback of the kid getting possessed, which you don't even need to see because all of it was in the trailer. The kid's on the waterbed. There's something in the waterbed. Goes, and that's it. And Michael Chaves is all like, yeah man, it's a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Remember when that scene had a point and led to an actual death? Should have just had Freddy burst out and then it cuts to the next day. Oh well. Things be scary sometimes, please. What was that? Ah, it's my Uber Eats. Hey.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Cool, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you. That's it.
Now, as I stated in my Annabelle review, I'm not religious, but I do like these types of horror movies. I enjoy ghost stories for their entertainment value, but I don't sit there thinking it's real. You know, like I don't sit through Nightmare on Elm Street going, did you know there's someone out there that can like legit kill you in your dream? I'm more than happy to suspend my disbelief to be entertained. So, whether the Warrens in real life prove this stuff is real and or were frauds, never had to cross my mind because I like James Wan's Conjuring movies enough, but this is the first entry in the series to make me think, the Warrens were probably frauds. Shortly after the events of Arnie stabbing his housemate that he thought was a demon, even though he was the one possessed, the Warrens are like, to solve this case, we gotta go back to the beginning. So they go back to the house where the opening exorcism took place. And there's this scene that starts off with Ed, Lorraine, and someone else standing in front of the entrance to the basement. Ed is standing there with his adorable new character gimmick of a walking cane. And he's like, oh, Lorraine, I'll go in. And she's like, no, hold my purse. And she goes in by herself. And there is a bunch of Ratatouille CGI rats running around. And there is a piece of cloth over something where the rats were swarming. And she takes off the cloth to reveal a voodoo satanic trinket. And then she brings it out to show Ed and the stranger, which starts the mystery adventure of a lifetime with Ed and Lorraine Warren, the hearts of the film. And out of all these movies, after all of the fanciful nonsense they added to these apparent real life stories, even the werewolf in Annabelle 3, this was the first time I was like, but she could have planted that. Oh yeah, there was totally a voodoo thing under your house. Oh, that's why everyone got possessed. Someone wanted to put a curse on your family. Whoa. Which happens a lot in this movie. Ed and Lorraine Warren are the only ones that see this shit on their own. And ever since that scene, I saw them for the rest of the film as bullshit artists. The entire showdown, which I'll get to later, is a prime example of adding shit to the real life story that throws off the whole suspend your disbelief practice. But the only reason I'm bringing this into question is because of the whole marketing.
The trial of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson. For the first time in history, the council tried to claim
that demonic possession was used as an alibi.
The pathetic gimmick of how this film was marketed sets up a mature direction for the Conjuring franchise to go in. No longer will the horror be confined to a house, but now a courthouse. The Warrens have to prove themselves on television all the time about the existence of demons. Now they gotta get the law involved. Oh boy, sounds like the franchise is evolving. Nah, the courtroom element in this film is absolutely nothing, and the movie spends its time being X-Men Apocalypse, and that's not even a joke. In fact, I feel like Michael Chaves used this movie as a director's audition to land himself a superhero movie next. There's a part in this movie where they learn of some girl who was murdered that's related to the main guy or something. And so, Lorraine uses her psychic thing to help the cops find where the girl's body is. Before, it used to be her standing in a room and feeling the ghost vibes. Something that James Wan put in The Conjuring 2. When she does this at the Amityville house in her psychic dream state, she is walking around the house, scanning the rooms, and in her vision, she is reenacting the Ronnie DeFeo murders. But she is still sitting with her eyes closed during all of this. Now, her psychic thing is running all around the place, reenacting the vision, while the other people just stand and watch her. See? Now it's like a comic book, action movie. What is this hand? A real one? It wasn't in the vision. That was nighttime, but this is daytime? X-Men! So she solves that crime, the cops are no longer skeptics or whatever, and then later that night, Ed and Lorraine commit a crime by breaking into the morgue after hours, like they are private detectives. All this just so Lorraine can hold the dead body's hand and then go scan the route of what demon is responsible for this movie. And it's not a demon, it's a person. Some bitch doing voodoo satanic shit. And in this vision, Lorraine is walking around an underground cave / tunnels with satanic stuff everywhere. And there is this woman standing over a slab with a pentagram, candles, skulls, and is doing voodoo stuff.
You really want to know the one thing you should be afraid of?
Yes, I really do.
Voodoo.
Voodoo?
That shit will mess you up. And it is 100% real.
And she sees Lorraine Warren in her own vision. Then Lorraine's like, Ed, she knows who we are. She knows where we are. It's literally the part where Professor X is psychic reading Apocalypse and he scans him back and then goes after him. This voodoo witch woman is so powerful that she can best Lorraine's powers. So powerful that while Lorraine is stuck doing her Professor X shit with a corpse, that can somehow transmit to the main villain's lair. Ed is standing there watching this when a gigantic dead fat dude gets possessed and is standing up. He looks like the fat dude on the bus from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Sir, I need to pull the cord to get off the bus. This is my stop. You're in my way. Can you get out of the way so I can pull the cord? I'll get out of your way as soon as I get off the bus. Oh my God, what is wrong with you?
And he's about to attack Ed unless Lorraine breaks the spell. I used to think that Ed couldn't see the spirit stuff, but Lorraine could. That's how it worked.
You picking up anything in here, hon?
something awful happened here, Ed.
But nah, this is X-Men now. We need to have a heavy for Ed to fight. But don't worry, this is still The Conjuring. When the dude kills the other dude and they need to convince someone that it's demonic influence, they're like, rah, 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 there's no such thing. And Lorraine's like, why don't you come back to our place and meet Annabelle? Then later on, they're at home and Lorraine walks in with some flowers and says to Ed, oh look, we just got some flowers from the parent family. 10 things you may have missed in The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Number 1, the mentioned Annabelle doll is a reference to the Warrens' early case about the Annabelle doll. Number 2, the parents were the family in the first movie. But this is all the dumb new shit. Let's address the court case that shocked America. Apparently. So, by this point, we have sat through decades of shitty, cheap horror movies trying to peddle the whole based on true events tagline. But as high profile as this movie series is, especially given what they are based on, this was just a massive revelation for me while sitting in the cinema. All the Conjuring movies got to use that based on true events tagline, but here it's like a farce. Saying based on true events, and what you sit through is a comic book spectacle movie. Superpowers, bloated plot, zero consequences, the most fanciful events ever. All things that was not from the real life story when you research it. But obviously there's poetic license when adapting stories for cinema, but you just sit through this movie thinking, no, none of this happened. Not only is it unbelievable, it's also stupid. All of the marketing for this film is about the court case that shocked America, but that isn't even a factor in this movie. But why I'm addressing the whole based on true events aspect as a negative is because the optimistically true part of this movie is Arnie Johnson did murder someone. Now, every other Conjuring movie is about a haunting in a house. Simple stories that happened behind closed doors, but no one died. So adding fanciful elements to those types of based on true events stories is fine. But here it felt kinda sickening. But what I mean by that is, this movie puts nearly no weight onto the real life murder and dresses it up as, well, thankfully Ed and Lorraine Warren are here to save the day with their superpowers. The movie's subtitle of The Devil Made Me Do It was put at the front of all of the marketing. And when you see the movie, the way the murder is represented is so wishy-washy. Arnie Johnson is feeling under the weather. He keeps seeing this woman who you will later find out put a curse on him. So technically he's not possessed. I'll get back to that point in a bit, but he's behaving like there's something wrong with him. He begins seeing stuff, and essentially from his point of view, his friend looks like a vampire and is trying to attack his girlfriend. Then he goes to attack Arnie, and he gets out a knife and stabs him to death. Then he's walking down the street on his own, where he's found by a cop. His eyes are all possessed, but then turn off.
I think I hurt someone.
And then that's what starts the plot. So straight away, the devil didn't make him do it. He was tricked visually by a voodoo witch woman. He was acting in self-defense of someone else being possessed. Then it's like the whole film doesn't make you feel any sympathy for the guy who was actually killed. And the entire movie, Arnie just sits in prison and sort of has people around him look like monsters and go bleh, bleh, and bleh. Bleh shirt's now available, link in the description. Meanwhile, the Warrens are running all around town being renegade priest cops, gathering clues to solve mysteries. Arnie in prison now becomes this ticking clock factor of the Warrens needing to defeat the evil witch woman before the curse kills Arnie in prison but makes it look like suicide. The evil witch woman has this ridiculous convoluted Inspector Gadget villain plot to have some random girl stabbed to death in a forest, to have Arnie murder someone and then take his own life, and Ed and Lorraine Warren have to die because they're in love. The plan is just as oddly specific as Satan's plan in the South Park movie.
Behold, the first signs of my reign have all come true. The fall of an empire, the coming of a comet. And now, when the blood of these Canadians touches American soil, it will be our time to rise.
And through their adventures, someone tells the Warrens, go talk to this old man on his ranch. He knows about this specific cult. And so they go there and he has his own satanic voodoo trinket room, just like the Warrens. His big revelation is being the father of the witch woman. And by her being exposed to all of his satanic artifact crap, made her become obsessed with the occult and learnt spells and stuff. Arnie Johnson murdered a guy in real life, but don't worry, a magic woman with superpowers forced him to do it. So, cutting to the chase, because there is so much nonsense in this movie not worth discussing. Like the villain sending that trinket from the other house to the Warrens' house, which then makes that fat dude from the morgue show up again to attack Ed. Because, you know, Bathsheba attacked the Warrens at their house, the nun attacked them at their house. The villain's always got to go to their house, but whatever. Ed and Lorraine find out that the witch woman's evil lair is this abandoned train underground tunnel place or something that's underneath her father's ranch. It was all connected. Michael Chaves, while prepping this movie, was like, man, how good is The Shining? Oh man, I'm making a horror film. How could I homage The Shining?
Lorraine! Daddy!
The witch blows possession dust in Ed's face, so he has to chase Lorraine around with a sledgehammer. Lorraine is having all of these double visions, seeing the point of view of the witch woman because they cross their Professor X powers. Also at this time, a priest is trying to do priest exorcist shit to Arnie in prison. Everything is fucking exploding and blowing up. All of the prison searchlights are pointed at the building he's in, creating this ridiculous over-the-top flashing lights effect. Through the power of love and exposition, Lorraine breaks the spell Ed is under. Ed then smashes that pentagram slab with his sledgehammer. Then the day is won. All of the X-Men wind and explosions at the prison stop and Arnie is fine. Then this duplicate demon version of the woman shows up and kills her. And then it's all like,
I'll get you next time, Warrens, if it's the last thing I do.
Ed and Lorraine then come out of the underground tunnels to breathe in that victorious breath of fresh air. Then it fades to the big court day. Arnie gets out of a police car, all of the characters are there, and then they all head into the court building. Then some bullshit text pops up saying he only served 5 years in prison. Now, from the basic research I put into the real life case, essentially in real life, the courts were like, no, this whole devil stuff is bullshit, and he got like 20 years for murder. In fact, it barely even addresses it, and every single goddamn trailer shows the courtroom footage, but this never for 1 second is a court movie. This movie is just superhero junk for morons who think that jump scares are what horror movies are. This movie has this weird happy ending. Doesn't quite paint this guy out to be a murderer because he needed to be in the promo videos. Imagine killing someone in the age where evidence is harder to come by, you know, by today's standards, and then 4 decades later they make a Harry Potter movie to make you seem like the innocent one. And all of this basically says to me that the Warrens were real life con artists, probably paid off all of these people who are a part of their real life stories, because all of them get to do the publicity and marketing for when these movies adapt their apparent real life story. And I thought The Nun was the worst in this franchise. Then La Llorona took that place, but this movie, Jesus, tap dancing Christ, it's just dumb. But you can now see that reflected in its overall rating. It's such a drop compared to the first 2 Conjuring movies, and this is now just as shitty as any of the shitty spin-offs. And they're saying this is like the 3rd highest grossing movie during the pandemic, and they're gonna be like, whoa, that's saying something. It's like, oh yeah, definitely not saying it's because people are fucking bored from not having movie content during a 2-year lockdown. But I think they just need to stop. This and the last 2 movies have just shown how desperate they are to milk the success that the franchise started with, which is heartbreaking, as I've expressed in previous videos how much I loved James Wan's 2 Conjuring movies. But now it's like anything that I was a fan of, it just got milked, and the fan base became so obnoxious. I was holding out for this movie if whether or not the main Conjuring movies would stay good and the spin-offs would just be the shit movies, but nah. As I said in my previous video, I like the movies that James Wan directs, but I hate the ones he produces. I'm glad an Australian filmmaker gets to roll in so much money creating all of these franchises like Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring. He's an ideas man and he knows how to please an audience. My favorite scene from any of his Conjuring movies is when the girl is home alone from school and Bill Wilkins is in the room with her. That whole scene is fucking ace horror filmmaking right there. It's something believable, it gets under your skin, and nothing blows up. But the rest of this franchise is just a Bleh factory. This movie is such a farce that swaps out suspense for spectacle. It's just creativity overload with logic thrown out the window. Apparently, this movie featured a whole demon character that was completely cut out of the movie. The thing in the waterbed and was probably that evil twin of the woman, I guess. They said they cut it out of the movie because it made the plot too confusing and convoluted, but maybe the demon character will get its own spin-off one day. See, I would have said keep that, but maybe cut out the voodoo woman and maybe actually play on the whole the devil made me do it. But I'm now done with this franchise. I won't see what they make next because I don't need to see what they make next. I've now seen it all. Maybe it's time this franchise ended. Maybe it's time to put it all to rest. Maybe there's one person who can save us from this nightmare. Maybe there's something special coming to this channel very soon.